on the southern shore of Zhongnanhai, the imperial lake complex adjacent to the Forbidden City. There is a small island called Yingtai. In 1898, Chinese workers built a bridge to the island and then removed it. After that, the only way to reach Yingtai was by boat, and the only people allowed on the boats were servants, guards, and a rotating group of officials selected by the Empress Dowager Cixi. The man living on the island was the Emperor of China. He would remain there for 10 years. His name was Zaitian. His reign title was Guangxu. He had been emperor since the age of 4, and the woman who had placed him on the island was the same woman who had placed him on the throne. This is the story of an emperor who was never really allowed to be one. Guangxu came to the throne in 1875 under circumstances that were themselves unusual. The previous emperor, Tongji, had died without an heir. Under normal Qing succession rules, the throne should have passed to the next generation, a son or nephew. But Empress Dowager Cixi, who had been the power behind the Tongji reign, selected her 3-year-old nephew instead. This allowed her to continue as regent. The court objected. Several officials argued the selection violated succession law. One senior official submitted a memorial of protest and then killed himself in front of the palace gates. Cixi proceeded anyway. The boy became emperor. Cixi became regent. She had already been the effective ruler of China for 15 years. She was not interested in stopping. Guangxu grew up inside the Forbidden City under her supervision. He was reportedly studious and serious, genuinely interested in governance and in the world outside the palace walls. He read voraciously about foreign countries and modern technologies. He was interested in why China was losing ground to Japan and the Western powers. He also grew up afraid of Cixi. Everyone was. Cixi had come to the imperial court as a low-ranking concubine in 1852. She was 16 years old. Within a decade, she had made herself indispensable. She was the only concubine who could read and write well enough to assist Emperor Xianfeng with his state documents. When he died in 1861, she formed an alliance with his principal empress and staged a coup against the Regency Council that had been named in his will. She was 26. For the next 47 years, across 3 emperors, she was the defining force in Chinese governance. She was not a reformer. She was a survivor. Her instinct was to preserve the existing order against anything that threatened it, whether that threat came from foreign powers, internal reformers, or the emperors she nominally served. She was formidable, paranoid, and willing to do whatever was necessary. When Guangxu finally began to act like an emperor, she was still watching. In 1898, Guangxu was 27 years old. China had just lost a war with Japan. The defeat was humiliating. Japan was a country. China had long considered a lesser power, and it had taken them by surprise. The peace terms stripped China of Taiwan and Korea. Guangxu decided to act. Over 103 days, beginning in June 1898, he issued a series of reform edicts. They were sweeping. Modernize the military along Japanese lines, restructure the examination system that produced government officials, establish modern schools, reform the legal system, allow freedom of the press. He was trying to transform China in 3 months. The reformers around him, young officials inspired by Japanese and Western models, encouraged him. His most prominent advisor was a scholar named Kang Yuwei, who believed China could reform itself rapidly if it had the political will. Cixi watched from her retirement at the summer palace, and then she moved. On September 23, 1898, Cixi staged a coup. She returned to Beijing, seized control of the government, and placed Guangxu under arrest. 6 of his key reform advisors were arrested and executed within days. Kang Yuwei escaped to Japan. Others were exiled. The reform edicts were revoked. The new schools were closed. The examination system was reinstated. Guangxu was accused of plotting against the Empress Dowager, of planning to have her arrested or killed. He denied it. Most historians who have examined the evidence believe the accusation was either fabricated or significantly exaggerated. The official announcement said the emperor had requested that Cixi resume control. No one in the court believed this, but no one said so aloud. Guangxu was moved first to the ocean terrace in Zhongnanhai and eventually to Yingtai Island, where the bridge was removed. He was 27 years old. He would not govern again. The 10 years Guangxu spent on Yingtai were, by accounts that survived, deeply bleak. He was allowed visitors, but was closely monitored. His correspondence was read. He was permitted to see Cixi on formal occasions and to participate in ceremonial functions, maintaining the fiction that he was still emperor in more than name. He was not treated brutally in a physical sense. He had food, servants, and access to books, but he had no power, no privacy, and no prospect of either returning. He kept diaries. Most were destroyed. Fragments that survived suggest a man who understood exactly what had happened to him, and who could not find a way to accept it. He was in poor health for most of this period. He had suffered from kidney disease and other chronic illnesses since childhood, and the isolation appears to have worsened his condition. He requested medicines that were slow to arrive. He asked to see doctors and was given Cixi's personal physicians instead, men whose loyalty was not to him. He was 38 years old, then 39, then 40. In 1908, Cixi herself fell seriously ill. On November 14, 1908, the Guangxu emperor died. He was 37 years old. He had been ill, but his death was sudden. 1 day later, exactly 1 day, the Empress Dowager Cixi died as well. The timing was noted immediately. Even in 1908, the coincidence was too striking to ignore. Cixi, who had controlled China for nearly 50 years, died the day after the emperor she had imprisoned. The emperor died without an heir, without having governed, without having implemented a single one of his reforms. For nearly a century, the cause of Guangxu's death remained officially unexplained. In 2008, 100 years after his death, Chinese scientists completed analysis of hair samples taken from his tomb. The results were unambiguous. His body contained arsenic levels approximately 2,000 times the normal amount. He had been poisoned. Who gave the order has never been conclusively established. Cixi is the most obvious suspect. She had the means, the motive, and the pattern. She had also, on her actual deathbed the following day, named a 3-year-old child as the next emperor, ensuring that there would be no adult successor to undo what she had built. The debate around Guangxu is, at its core, a debate about whether his reforms would have saved China. His defenders argue that the 100 Days reform if allowed to proceed, might have set China on a path similar to Japan's Meiji Restoration. Japan had done exactly what Guangxu proposed, and had emerged as a major power within a generation. His critics argue that his reforms were too fast, too poorly planned, and too threatening to too many powerful interests to have succeeded even without Cixi's intervention. What is not a matter of debate is the personal story. He became emperor at 4. He ruled, or tried to, for exactly 103 days before losing everything. He spent 10 years on an island in the middle of a lake, 200 meters from the palace he nominally still controlled. He died with arsenic in his bones. His 100 days had lasted 3 months. His imprisonment lasted a decade. His dynasty lasted 4 more years after his death and then collapsed. The reforms came anyway, just too late. And without him. This is the Dragon Throne. We cover the rulers of Asia who tried to change history, and those who stopped them from doing it. Subscribe if this story mattered to you. New episodes every week.